is I had a pretty good day today. Not just a pretty good day. I hope you guys had a damn good day today. I've had a pretty productive, I would say, morning and afternoon. So let's go for the after break soapbox. That's not really what I'm going to call it, but for today I am going to call it that. Bernie Sanders has put out a really good ad. Now, there are a few things I like about the ad. I know that what I'm calling this, the title of this video, comes across as a bit hyperbolic, but I think it's to some degree right. And I don't mean this ad in a very specific context. I just mean the theme of the ad, the way the ad is going about its attack on Donald Trump. I'm going to show this ad. First, I want to talk about what I don't like about it, which is pretty minor in the context of what I do like about it. And then I want to go into what I like about it, and then I'm going to show the ad itself. There's a question that I want to ask at the end of this ad, however, that is in no way brought up, no way dealt with, no way touched on, none of that stuff. And to some degree, I think it's almost impossible to... Let's do the video first. I'm getting away from the point. So first, Bernie Sanders put out a video about Lawrence, Ohio. Apparently there's a plant there that got closed. He has somebody who is from there talking about his advocacy work in that area and trying to get, let's just say, fairness for the workers who are in this country, who are up against a capitalistic system that has a certain way of going about things, meaning a certain way of pushing profits to some while having others take a bad hit. And in this case, they took a bad hit. There were promises that were made by Donald Trump that weren't necessarily lived up to. So this is kind of why I like this hit. The only thing I don't like about this video is, and I know this is purely contextual to me only because I inhale this stuff, meaning I pay attention to the media constantly. There's a musical note, there's a tone that in the video, and the video, the musical underlay for it, if you pay attention to it, is for the most part the same musical underlay that it had for one or two of Sanders' other videos. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. His other videos had a certain emotional impact, however, somebody was watching those videos. And even though I have no doubt, and I would even wager that even people who criticize Sanders the most, being on the left, at the very least believe he's being earnest in what he's trying to go after. But it can feel a bit exploitative, at least from an emotional standpoint, if you're using this kind of same musical tone over and over and over and over again in the videos. After a while, you start saying, hey, that's the same musical note. You're trying to evoke the same emotional response from me. So there's that. But again, I don't necessarily doubt that Bernie Sanders believes what he's pushing. So that doesn't come from a place of, I think he's being disingenuous. It's not that. And like I said, this is to some degree pertains to me or to people who pay attention to this a lot. So, put it within context. From the standpoint, what I like about the video, Sanders, his message is straightforward. Look, this system has gone too far in one direction. There needs to be fairness in regards to the way we organize our affairs, and then for so long it's been organized to the top 1%. That message is on point. The message is awesome. But also hitting home at this thing of, look, your life shouldn't be this way. A different world is possible. These people who've been put in offices have certain advantages or certain incentives, oftentimes financial, that push them to a certain direction. Oftentimes that direction is not in your best interest. I, Bernie Sanders, am working in your best interest. Donald Trump said this. He said he was going to work in your interest. Donald Trump said he was going to fight the billionaire class. Donald Trump says he wasn't going to do the tax cuts. Donald Trump said he was going to do healthcare. Donald Trump said, and list all of the things that Donald Trump said he was going to do, and then go after the fact that he didn't do it. With this added extra, English of having people in the districts that Donald Trump won from Obama, getting across how much he fucked those places over. I think that is a particularly effective way of hitting at Donald Trump. Let's take a look at the video. And there's not a huge amount other than this. But I do have one question at the end of this. So let's take a listen and then we can talk after.
What built the middle class during the Industrial Revolution? This area is in trouble, and it's up to us, the people, to fight back. I'm Chucky Dennison. I'm from Lake Milton, Ohio. This is my third plant I've seen close, and I do not plan to transfer again. I plan to stay here and fight back by organizing and transforming the political system from the ground up and reclaim the White House. Trump lied to Ohio. He hasn't done one thing to lift a finger. He came to this area and told people, do not sell your homes. I'm bringing the jobs back. And weeks after that is when they announced the plant closing.
Let me tell you folks in Ohio and in this area, don't sell your house.
A large American factory stopped production today after more than half a century. 1,600 workers at the General Motors plant in Lordstown, Ohio are affected by this.
The plant is in Trumbull County, a county that voted for President Obama and then for President Trump.
It's not only devastating to the employees who work for that plant, but the families. It affects the whole entire area. Tax revenue, infrastructure, down to the schools. Even the little children in school, their best friends disappear because they're uprooted and have to move. The tire factories are gone, the steel mills are gone. This was all that this area had left. If you drive down our roads now, and every one of them's got potholes. He came here and lied to these people. I didn't buy it, but many people did because they were hanging on to hope. They were hoping that he would do something, but he did the opposite.
Trump gave General Motors $700 million in federal contracts.
I mean, this is happening all over this nation with all kinds of corporations. Not only are you hurting workers, communities, but the children and future generations. And it needs to stop now.
Today I say to Donald Trump, you know, you are a really tough guy and you are prepared to shut down the federal government and deny hundreds of thousands of workers a paycheck. Well, let's see how tough you are. Tell General Motors today, no more federal contracts until they deal with Lordstown. Let's see how tough you are. Today, our message to General Motors and the other corporations is that you cannot continue to treat your employees with disdain and contempt. And if you are not a good and responsible corporate citizen, do not think that you will get federal contracts.
Bernie, we need you.
We do.
We need you. And we have your back. And I know you got ours. If we can get you elected, man, we're going to have the resources to transform America.
I like it. Like I said, I get so used to the ding, 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 ding. It's that thing of I guess this feeling of expectation is associated with it. It tries to hit a high note. But it's what it is. It's politics. There's a certain degree of exploitation built within politics in and of itself, and you're trying to get people who are trying to pull people onto your side. I like I said, I like this notion of having people there attacking him on things that Donald Trump said he was going to do. I think that's perfectly on point. Russia has nothing to do with this, which is also on point and awesome. So Sanders doesn't go down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole in his attack on Trump because he doesn't need to go down the conspiracy rabbit hole in his attack on Trump because there is a cornucopia of things to attack Donald Trump on. What's the point in going to a conspiracy theory to do so? Gold star on that point. My basic question to this, though, is how? How? This is how capitalism works, right? I mean, let's say you're doing widgets. The companies that are moving that left Ohio wasn't doing it out of malice. It wasn't doing it because, it was angry at the employees. Now, you could say that makes it worse. There's a certain degree of amorality built into it. They did it because it was more profitable to them in some way. Say, for instance, you're making widgets. Let's say that company made widgets. And let's say that company made widgets for $20 per whatever. Whatever the mantra is, or whatever the going number of widgets. $20 per widget. Now, but in making this 20, understand what goes into this. Employee salary, healthcare, making sure that when they dispose of the materials, that the materials are disposed of in a environmentally friendly way. There's certain things that go into the price of making those widgets more than just the materials of the widgets. You find out that in Timbuktu, that they can make widgets for 30 cents, whatever the bushel is, because they don't really care about environmental stuff. They don't really care about making sure that the employees are healthy or have health care. They don't care about none of that stuff. These people are extraordinarily desperate, and they'll take whatever you can give them because, this is the difference between being able to eat 1 day out of the week or 3. How is that American worker going to compete with that? Like, how does the company compete with that? And a company looking at this from the vested interest of the company says our job is to maximize our profit. And fuck, they can make widgets for 30 cents. What is the company going to do? The company is going to move to the place that can make the widgets for 30 cents. You can say the company is horrible. You can say all that stuff. But the company's job, its objective, is not to employ those workers. This guy standing back here with the Bernie Sanders thing, the job of that company is not to employ that worker. Employing that worker is an expense. It's something else that the company has to do only to make its profit. It's a means to an end. That needs to be understood. People oftentimes look at the company as if the job of the company is to hire workers. It is not. That's not how capitalism works. And not just not how capitalism works. That's not, a bug. That's a feature. That's not a bug. That's a feature. This is not a hit at Sanders. Don't misunderstand me. This is just kind of pointing out that this is the system to which we find ourselves. This is not an act of God. This is an act of policy. These are choices that people made in order to get the system the way the system is. It dramatically advantages some and disadvantages others. This guy that's standing behind me with the sign is one of the people that it disadvantaged. His company sought to maximize their profit. And in doing so, they closed this plant. I just would have nailed this down. I mean, this is not malice on behalf of the company. Changing this requires changing the system itself. This channel started with that basic premise that the capitalistic system has certain negative outcomes. And those outcomes create incentives that create those outcomes. That in order for those things to change, in order for people like this to be standing out there with a Bernie sign, in order for that not to take place, the system itself needs to be fundamentally changed. Does Sanders go about doing that? Or is this still kind of the moving the deck chairs around? I'm going to withhold funding for this in order to try to force the company to do this. Or does he go further into dealing with the system itself? Look, even if it goes so far as to say worker co-ops, meaning the Richard Wolff solution, this idea that, look, if a company was owned by the employees would never come up with a decision that would shut down the company, that would disenfranchise themselves. So his idea is support worker co-ops. Have it with a situation where the workers themselves are part of the corporate structure itself or a part of the corporation itself. Why do you need CEOs of those companies? Can't the workers themselves run those companies? The answer, I would think, is yes. But I'm just curious on Bernie Sanders' answer to this. That's all. I love the commercial, so don't misunderstand me. This is not a hit on Sanders. This is more so a hit on the capitalistic system itself, the system to which we float into. It's more so hitting at that, pointing to the fact that the issue is the system. That's not a bug. That's a feature. These the buildings weren't closing down. All of these factories in this country didn't just close down just out of nowhere. Do you honestly believe that there wasn't somebody making a buck at the end of the factory closing? Yes. I mean, come on. This is your system. This is the system itself. Somebody sent a super chat. Problem is Bernie won't be the nominee. Oh, we disagree. Man, I can't disagree with you more. Look, is it possible that Bernie loses? Yes, it is possible that Bernie loses. He's going to have a lot of people and a lot of money that is going against him to try to take him down. Am I going to take this cynical point of view that he's not starting off? I am not. That is self-defeating. And I got to be honest, pessimism is not a survival trait. Rob, oh my God, you're not nitpicking on the most stupid thing ever. I don't like the music. Holy shit, that's the new one. Jesus Christ, come on. It's not that I don't like the music. Look, listen to Sanders' old ads. And I acknowledge right off the bat that it was nitpicky. I even acknowledge that other people who watch the videos or who don't watch it as much as I do won't, necessarily pick up on it. So I acknowledge all that starting off. But the music is this heroic music that is used on clips to try to make it look like something epic is about to take place. There's nothing wrong with that. But do you do that on every video? And if you do it on every video, do you lose something? That's all. I can defend that point of view. Yeah. I totally defend that point of view. No one wants to do jury duty. Let's see. Bernie Sanders is a OG pop reality. Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, so instead of the usual Interstellar Inception contract they use on their own version of a great ad. Yeah, I like the ad. I don't hate the ad. Lawson has taken a brutal beating over the 40 years. I have family in Turnbull County, and the economy has taken a big hit there near Youngstown. You know, the people, what makes more sense? Why would a town go from Obama to Trump? You know what I mean? And you have to engage that at a point beyond just, well, those people became racist in the interim that Obama was in office. It's like, come on, let's be honest. You have to engage that beyond Vladimir Putin did something in order to get, you have to engage it beyond that. You have to go beyond that. They might not want to go beyond that, but you have to go beyond that. Charles Cavan, stop burning meetings in second round of superdelegates. Look, my wife and I, her and I, oftentimes we get into these disagreements on things. And yeah, I give you a perfect example, having a kid. And I put certain stipulations around how to having a kid. I grew up poor. We didn't have access to the things that we need in decent supply. And my thing was, I don't want a kid to grow up that way. And so I want a certain degree saved away before we have a kid. But there are other medical stuff that I said I wanted to take place beforehand also. And she looked at it and said, okay, so we're not having a kid. That's impossible. Now, to me, I don't necessarily look at it that way. I just looked at it as these are objectives that you need to accomplish before we can do whatever we need to do. I think that almost is an absolute pretty much about everything. What is it that you want to accomplish and what are objectives in order to accomplish those things? And you work your way through in order to accomplish those things. When I hear it's impossible for Sanders to become the nominee, I think that's quitter talk, if I'm being honest. If you tell me that it's difficult, then fair enough. We can have a conversation around difficult. We can figure out what that is. And we can figure out what we need to do, if anything is possible, to get around it. But he would never be the nominee. This would never take place. They would never let that. Is it possible that he loses? Yes. Is it impossible for him to win? No. I don't think you have secret meetings trying to stop Sanders if it was a foregone conclusions that you can stop Sanders. The fact that they had the meetings in the first place is some understanding that we agree on the same pretense of reality that he could win. He could win. This is literally the first time in our lifetime where there is a potential for a nominee that looks at the system differently, that even goes so far as to call himself a goddamn socialist. I am not going to take the disposition starting off that it is impossible for that person to win. I don't see the point in quitter talk. And yeah, pessimism is not a survival trait. At least I don't think it is. All right. I am going to end this because I still have a few more that I want to get to before the day is over with, particularly around this notion of impeachment. I think there's some people out there that are losing their mind on impeachment stuff. I have to be honest. And Michael Tracy and I were talking about this, and it's like you did two things. Donald Trump is the weakest president that has held that office in our lifetime, and that's including George Bush Sr., the one that lost to Bill Clinton. So let's put that in context. And you want to take him out on some presupposition that never took place. They're like, because this is the weirdest logic to me. Donald Trump was colluding with the Russian government. Okay. And you find out after 3 years that that's not true. And that Donald Trump looked at this as a witch hunt. And that because he looked at this as a witch hunt, to some degree, he was interested in stopping what he considered to be a witch hunt. All right, fair enough. But the moment that you find out that the original presupposition wasn't true, How can you get him on obstruction of justice? There was no justice. He wasn't trying to stop you from looking into something that was a crime because it never existed. If anything, he looked at this as a political witch hunt. So now, though, that doesn't matter. Like, the unreality of this doesn't matter. And you have some people who I like, by the way, going so far as to say, we now got to impeach this president. On what? Oh, he obstructed justice. Well, it wasn't really justice because what you said he didn't exist. So he obstructed the acquisition of non-justice. Whatever you want to call it, we want to take his ass out of office. And that's where they're at now. Nancy Pelosi, I strongly suspected, looked at this for what it was from the beginning. This looks like a political witch hunt. We're not going to impeach the president, but hey, maybe we'll talk about it later. She wasn't necessarily on board for this. Michael Tracy makes an interesting point. Does Pelosi withstand, you can see, a certain degree of pressure that's being put by political candidates like Elizabeth Warren and AOC, these, you could say the centrist left wing of the party, if you want to call it that, and the left wing of the party, now pushing on Pelosi about impeachment stuff. I think this is fucking folly. And not just folly. You're talking about putting in somebody who's a far better steward of that office, meaning is far more in line with the mainstream of the political party, Mike Pence, and can, and he's not incompetent. He may be a religious maniac, but he's not incompetent. I want the guy that's incompetent running the next political campaign. I'm sorry, I do. And the original thing that you think you have him on didn't exist. All of this looks utterly absurd. And are you trying to tell me that half the country, 50% of the country, looks at this and says this is a witch hunt? 50% of the country looks at this and says this is a witch hunt. Your original thesis was shot down on top of America. If you could look up at the sky at the exact same time when the Mueller report was released, that was essentially the central thesis of the Russia thing. That light in the sky being shot out of the sky for everybody to see. And despite that, despite the rest of the public, half of it thinking it's a witch hunt, and at that point, after seeing that, knowing to some degree this becomes somewhat as a witch hunt, to still continue on with, we're still going to get this president. If you want to get Donald Trump, I suspect that the part that he's weak on is not on the conspiracy theory. The stuff that he's weak on is the stuff that he said he was going to do during this campaign and then did the opposite. That's the stuff that you hit him on if you're trying to take him on anything. This campaign ad by Sanders does exactly that. I understand that I'm pushing it further into this idea of, look, the capitalistic system allows certain outcomes. How are you going to change those outcomes without dealing with the system itself? But that's almost secondary to just the politics of going after Trump. There's one more thing that this campaign ad does. It understand that the candidates have made some decision to not attack each other. Like, this seems to be the rule set that these guys are going by. We're not going to attack one another in a campaign. Fair enough. But that creates this interesting dynamic where it looks like Sanders is elevating himself to the level of the president immediately, as if he's not going through the campaign itself. It's almost as if he's already won the campaign and he's talking to the president of the United States, elevating himself to the level of the president. Typically, this didn't take place until after the candidates thought they won the race. If you think back to the race in 2016, Hillary Clinton, at a certain point, stops responding to Sanders and just starts talking to Trump. The same thing happened with Obama in that race against Clinton, where at a certain point they stop talking about the candidate and start talking to the president of the United States. They elevate themselves to the level of the president. In this case, this is taking place just by happenstance, just because of the way they're engaging one another. They're not attacking each other in the primaries. You can understand why they're not attacking each other in the primaries. Anything that they use in the primaries is going to automatically be used against them by the president of the United States. When they came out with that attack ad against against Sanders, talking about him, he wrote a great book and became a millionaire because of it. Oh my God, how's a socialist millionaire? Fox News picked it up and immediately started running with it. So, but yeah, I have, that's a tangent like nobody's business, but I have other videos that I want to do. Well, I want to talk specifically about that. Charles Calvin. I think Bernie would win if it was fair and square. I do too, Charles. Nick Brana, People's Party. And by the way, I support Brana's People's Party. I support it. My issue with Brana's People's Party is just, it's not an easy task. That's all. It's not an easy task. And it's like, not just not an easy task. In front of me, I have a actual potential. It's like, the issue that I had with Hillary was that doesn't get you anywhere. Like, you're stuck with the exact same problem. In fact, you entrench the problem because you're putting somebody in who's status quo. I'm sick of the system, the way the system works. We need something different. And so, that rule set for me, that argument for me still remains true. The catch here is, I think this is something different. I think the potential for this, there's a chance to literally shift the window of what it means to be the left in this country to the actual left. It may not go as far as I would want, but it hell of a lot gets me hell of a lot further than where I currently am, and then whatever else is in the political space. So, yeah, this is a horse I'm grabbing on, even though it's not a perfect horse. It scars, it limps, but goddamn it, I'm riding it. All right, I'm going to end this here. If you guys enjoyed the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. We're going to have Patreon Appreciation tomorrow, I think at 6 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. I need to check with my wife, make sure that's the right time. And I'll end this here. Thanks all.